Hi, you're listening to Scribble Talk, a podcast for bids and proposal professionals. My name is Bhaskar Sindhu, and with my co-host Ashley Case, we will be sitting down with the industry leaders to share their stories, discuss their career, and learn how to make an impact in the industry. Today's guest is Tilney Hall. Tilney has been working in proposals for over 7 years, more recently as a proposal coach and providing bid management to teams, facilitating key interventions such as bid no bid, kickoff, win team workshops, storyboarding, and review sessions. She also provides pitch coaching for both face-to-face virtual settings and supports teams and individuals to answer the client's brief whilst providing a client-centric story emphasizing win teams. Tilney is APMP 40 Under 40 winner 2020, is also a keen advocate of women in bids and proposal, part of their Midlands unit, and was also highly commended, part of the Strategic Proposals Rising Stars Award 2017. She currently works as a bid manager at Gulp Digital. So Tilney, welcome to Scribble Talk. Great to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tilney, let's go back to the very beginning. This is interesting. Where were you born? Let's talk about your early life and high schools.
Where was I born? I was born in Sri Lanka. That is the basic answer. That is where I was born, but that is not where I grew up. I grew up in Ireland and now live in the UK.
Right. Sri Lanka to Ireland to UK. There's 3 countries. Obviously, so many things might have happened early on. So how did you move from Sri Lanka to Ireland?
Okay, so I was adopted. I was adopted from 3 months old. I'm a part of a very international family, I would say. My dad, my adopted dad, very much current dad, is Scottish. My mum is from Stoke, both UK based. They moved over to Ireland many years before I was born for my dad's work. And they had my brother, so he grew up Irish, and then they had my sister. She's adopted, she's half Guyanese, half Irish, and then they adopted me from Sri Lanka. Grew up in Ireland and then came over for university to the UK in 2006 and have not left since. So that is the very short summary of how I traveled from 3 different places.
That's beautiful. Tilney, growing up in an adopted family, talk us through, how was it?
It is all I've ever known. So it's really hard to answer because I haven't known anything different. There are definitely nuances which a lot of adoptees will relate to in feelings of rejection and trust and identity. But all in all, I've had a very, very privileged life with a great education in Ireland. I was really lucky that I went to the, and I think still is to this day, the International School of Ireland. So it offers the International Baccalaureate and had probably the most diverse pupil collection that it could have. So I think it's probably got a lot of uniqueness about it, but it was, I guess, my life. So it was a great life. It's everything that I've known.
100%. I mean, like, what is it, adoption versus thing? I think it's seamless for you. You had a beautiful family set up and they gave you everything, it seems like, which is nice. So any childhood memories coming up into your mind as we speak?
Yeah, so I think some of the stuff that I really remember, which I guess are perhaps the nuances about being adopted, are things like at school when we used to have international night, and my mum and dad would help me get a sari, and they'd help me with my stand, and they'd make curry with me at home, and they'd be very supportive of getting the Sri Lankan cookbooks out and trying to make sure we were very authentic and things like that. Having them help me, that was a great memory for me. I guess another good memory was in Paris, getting very late for our flight back, and because my mum was adamant, we had found a sari shop right near the airport, and she was adamant that we needed to go and get me a sari. In Dublin, when I was growing up, there was very limited options for things like that, so it was really nice that my mum and dad were so supportive of those things. And it's those little memories that I guess would be the really personal things that stand out.
Got it. As much as they try to support you on either saris or cooking Sri Lankan curries, how good are you in Irish?
Good question. So I guess I perhaps ever so slightly took advantage of the system.
Right.
So in Ireland, it was mandatory to speak Irish, Gaeilge, the whole way through your education. I did get exempt after my junior cert, which is the equivalent to GCSEs, because I had a British passport, purely because I kind of made that decision that I wasn't going to be using Irish necessarily any later in life. So I'd rather have that study time to focus on other things. But I can speak basic Irish, I can understand basic Irish, and I do spend time regularly on Duolingo to make sure I keep it up to date. I don't know if it's something since I've been older and been trying to learn Sinhalese, having other languages, under your belt are very nice. So I do try to keep my skills up where I can.
I assume when you travel to different places, if you find an Irish pub, you still go inside, right?
Oh, of course, definitely. And where can't you find an Irish pub? Very few places speak Irish properly, though. There is a small part in Ireland called the Gaeltacht where people speak Irish, but I mean, in an Irish pub anywhere across the country, they definitely won't be speaking Irish. So it's not often I have to put it into practice.
Totally. Again, growing up there, doing your international baccalaureate, and did you do your university there as well? Tell me.
No, so I came over to the University of Birmingham. Growing up in Dublin, I was so lucky that I was in the biggest city and experienced so much, but I also kind of really wanted to go and explore more. I really wanted to have a bit more exposure to differences in the world, and I couldn't go anywhere bigger and more exciting than Dublin. So I'd looked at the UK. So I'd looked at various options. I looked at doing Sinhalese at SOAS in London. I'd looked at international development in Bath. And I actually started out doing social work at University of Birmingham. And it was only after I started that I really felt like social work at 18 is a big area to get into. And after a couple of weeks of studying, I just felt like I wasn't going to be emotionally mature enough to handle what those years of university would have been like. So I quite quickly changed to do social policy, which was much better suited to me. So yeah.
Got it. So you came here from the Ireland, you did your bachelor's in Birmingham. Do you remember your very first job, paid job?
Oh, my first paid job was working in a rugby club in Ireland for the Leinster rugby team, serving hot dogs and tea to the watchers. I had some good memories from it, though, because I got to meet Brian O'Driscoll, who was still is a very well-known rugby player in Ireland. And I guess it got me into kind of the customer service thing. I was probably only 13 or something at the time, doing it with through a neighbor of mine, and you very quickly have to get used to counting money and taking orders and stuff. And I guess that's maybe where my customer experience kind of started from.
Got it. From then on, you after finishing university, what was your very first job?
After university, my very first job. That wasn't very exciting. Well, some might say it was exciting. I graduated during the recession. So there was real difficulties in getting jobs. So I worked through a number of kind of jobs that just suited the needs of the time. So I worked in Selfridges. I did kind of customer service there. And then I worked at the Co-op Bank as a bank teller. And then I worked as a PA for a housing company. So yeah, after graduation, I had a mixture of jobs.
Got it. From then on, you entered the proposal industry. Talk us through your transition to proposal industry and also your experiences in that sector, both for professional services and now with Gulf.
Oh, yeah. So I was working for a local organization who they provided housing for young adults with learning disabilities. And I was a PA to the business development director. He obviously, as business development, kind of bids were under his remit. And I very much got used to kind of managing the portals, printing off documents, putting meetings in the diary, hitting the deadlines. And it was from then on in really that I really enjoyed bids. I mean, it was a great company and I really enjoyed working there, but bids really were the thing that kind of took over my interest. So I decided to go and pursue a specific bid role. So I then moved on to be a contracts coordinator, which was for another Midlands-based company who made colostomy bags and orthotics, so medical devices, primary customer being the NHS. But it was really interesting because they never had anybody here who had managed bids. It was very much kind of an investment role for them. And quite quickly, once I kind of joined, I realized contracts administrator, coordinator wasn't quite all that they needed. They had nobody doing anything. It was all kind of mismanaged by different salespeople. And when you tried to follow a process or anything, there was 1,000 different people doing 1,000 of the similar things. So quite quickly, I brought in kind of a bid process, brought in a lot of like the functions such as a bid library, storyboarding sessions, and the role just grew quite quickly. And so I was there for a couple of years and really got to know every single side of bidding. It was where I started, I guess, understanding more about the wider bid world as well. So at this point, I kind of went off to find, how can I find other people who do what I do? And I met a lovely, lovely guy, Mike Fernat, who became my mentor, who many people will have known him in the industry. And he became my go-to buddy for help on all things bid and introduced me to APMP. And I guess after seeing what else was out there and knowing that APMP and there was other roles and other people doing stuff, it broadened my horizons, along with the uniqueness of that medical device space that we were in was that most contracts were on a 5-year basis. There was also only about 5 manufacturers in that space. So once so many contracts had been renewed, there was kind of like a 4-year wait until you needed to do any more work. So it was quite difficult to maintain the need for a bid manager full time. At this point, I'd actually got an administrator working underneath me, managing kind of the portals and some day-to-day stuff. And it kind of came to a natural fruition for both parties where they didn't really need somebody full time. And I was definitely ready for making a mark somewhere else. So from that point, I moved on to work for a small consultancy company. Unfortunately, I was only here for a really small period because my dad got quite poorly, and it just wasn't viable to work in a consultancy where they couldn't outsource me when I had other priorities at that time. It was one of those decisions that was quite brave for me, because jobs, I think, in jobs markets are quite different nowadays, but at that point, changing job every 2 years wasn't seen as a good thing. I obviously was learning a lot along the way, and always leaving left at a point where it was, I'd made my stamp, but it wasn't good for the CV. Everyone says try and stick somewhere for 2 to 3 years minimum. So I was very worried about having to leave, but I definitely realized at that point that sometimes you need to prioritize what's important to you. So as much as a consultancy was part of my big plan, it didn't work, and I ended up going back into the medical healthcare space by working at an occupational health company. And ironically, paths crossed, and Mike Fernot, my buddy I mentioned earlier, ended up becoming my manager. So we spent quite a lot of time together. And yeah, similarly, it was, I learned kind of a different aspect. I did a lot more bid writing, which, Baz, everyone kind of, if you don't know the bid world, people just put all bid stuff together, but bid writing wasn't my natural forte. Definitely the admin, organizing, planning side was more my forte. So the bid writing side of it was a good learning time for me. And then I moved to a law firm, and then I went to PwC, and now I'm at Gulp. So I've had quite an interesting journey.
Definitely, that was an interesting journey, Thelini. And working for a law firm, you are entering from occupational health into professional services, which is very, very different, which is very slick, very glossy, pitch-based tenders, unlike occupational health or traditional tenders where you don't do not much pitches, but it's much more like a written document and pricing. How was the transition from occupational health to law firms and professional services, from there to PwC, and from then on you're back to Gulp?
So it was a really big transition. The law firm was very, very different to any business that I've been used to. Business development was very removed from the bids team, which made it very hard to get that early cycle of engagement and client intel. And then the actual SMEs were very hard to get time from. With billable hours being the priority for the firm, it was very, very hard to get buy-in from the lawyers or the associates on why you needed their time. So it was a very difficult transition for me. I guess it became quite evident it wasn't the right fit for me. I felt like the industry best practice cycle of really trying to get ahead and know who your client is and understanding their language and what their need is even before a tender comes out was much more my bag. I think I just like that early engagement and space to really try and understand the client needs, and that wasn't the same at the law firm at that time. So moving to PwC was such a fantastic jump. They are so progressive at how they bid. The cycle is so much more intuitive, and people really got into the bids. You never really struggled for that time with senior SMEs, which was amazing. And my role really expanded here to being much more of a coach. That's coaching through the whole process and the cycle of getting the bid to the deadline, but also coaching through the pitches and the presentations. So a lot of work on kind of how you interact, how are we going to use those 45 minutes? Are we going to do a bit of an open workshop? Are we going to do like a Q&A to get them engaged? And it was at this point that I guess I really enjoyed more of that presentation side and understanding even more, I guess, about the psychology of buying. And then unfortunately, there was a bit of a restructure and change, and I was made redundant, and I did a bit of contract work to tide me over. And then I found Gulp Digital, who I'm working with currently. They are a very small SME, digital technology based organization based in Croydon, your neighbours. So you know them. They are team predominantly of 4 guys who met at university and have brought together their skills and expertise. And it's so different from anywhere I've worked. It's probably my favorite place in being authentically me and having a voice, and then wanting to listen to that voice and actually making a difference to things. Because there's less stakeholders to get buy-in and from it, it's a much easier process to just initiate change and see improvements.
Totally, Tilly. Again, you know what, every sector, every bid teaches us something. And I'm glad that you were able to go through a lot of hoops very early on in your career. You know, I remember 11 and a half years with Circo. I took voluntary redundancy myself. At the point, I thought everything was over. But today, whatever I'm doing, it's because of that event that happened. Otherwise, I would be working somewhere else in a full-time job. But here you're back in Gulp, as you rightly said. You are happy that can be yourself as your authentic you. That's brilliant. Over this past 7+ years, Dylan, you might have done tons of proposals. Talk us through any memorable proposals that you have done, good, bad, ugly, for various reasons that you remember.
So I was thinking about this. I've been thinking about it regularly when I listen to other people on your podcast. I think one of the most memorable is more to do with the pitch, where I must have had 4 partners, all middle-class male partners. And normally it's quite difficult to get partner time, as much as they were, you know, on board with bids and they get it and everything. Actually getting partners time all to match is just a coordinator's bugbear. But we all managed to get a time together to do a pitch rehearsal, but we couldn't get a location. So we ended up doing a very, very productive pitch rehearsal in a hotel room in a travel lodge along the Oxford service station. It was probably the most memorable because I don't think I've ever had to do a pitch rehearsal in the most random place ever. And I don't drive. I'm one of the few people in the world that still doesn't drive. And I kind of had no idea where I was going. I was just told, here's the address. Someone has booked a meeting room for you. And I rock up and the hotel is like, no, there's no meeting room. It's a bedroom. So that was the most memorable, but mainly due to the circumstances. So yeah.
Totally. I think we talked a lot about proposals. Now let's open up and talk about you. But before we get in, Silini, I think let's talk. There are a few other pointers that you mentioned, which is like women in bids and proposals, the Midlands, Rising Star, strategic proposals. Let's talk us through those things, and APMP 40 under 40 awards. Talk us through about those things as well.
So women in bids and proposals is just a really good group for everybody and anybody in bids, outside bids. I know that we've had lots of people who are thinking about bids and don't know much about it, who have come to events. I heard about it through that first Eventbrite event that Charlotte made in London. At that stage, there was very little events kind of taking place for bids generally. So from Birmingham to London, off I went, kind of thinking this could be hit or miss, and just met loads of familiar faces who you've seen. I think like Martin Smith from Bid Solutions and Lorraine Bard from Strategic Proposals, loads of people who I've chatted to over the years, but had never met face to face. So it was lovely for that, but also kind of just taking that time to stop and reflect and learn and invest a little bit into your personal development was amazing. And ever since then, I think I came away and kind of said, how can I get involved? I've helped Charlotte and her team more actively in previous years with conference and with local events in the Midlands. I did take a little bit of a step back more recently whilst I was focusing on kind of a new sector that I'm in now. The team are doing amazing at providing a space for women to chat to other women and learn more. I guess I particularly loved having some events in Birmingham. It was just great to meet other like-minded people locally. And I remember when I'd host a couple of events, you'd have people coming from Liverpool, and I thought, this is just like me having to going all the way to London. I've got people from Liverpool coming down here. And it's just, most of my events were fairly informal, but there was clearly such a need, and there were so many people who just loved to come and chat and debrief, and it felt just really quite special, I guess, because there's just not that many opportunities. You know yourself, when you're in bids day in, day out, you're just always talking about the deadline, the debrief. There's very little time to stop and come back and think, oh my God, what am I doing well? What's not going well? What would I love to do? What could I do better? And these sessions were just a great time to go, oh, are you guys swamped? Are you not swamped? Like, what are you doing? And it was just a really positive space. So that is something that I would still always advocate for anybody to get involved in, and whether that's attending an event, just having a chat with somebody else, whether that's a Zoom coffee with somebody. I think it's a great network to tap into. And then APMP, I've done various bits and pieces. I've supported the board with their professional development program some years ago, and was very fortunate to get the 40 under 40 award. I think similar to taking that time to stop and see where you can make changes and improve. I think also in the bid world, it's really, really difficult to always necessarily get that praise that you need. It might be the sales team or it might be the partner, but very infrequently in my experience is it the bid team that get the pat on the back. So you've always got to be strong and resilient to finding the little wins or the wins that are personal to you. And I think for me, 40 under 40 was a really positive accolade to say, I've actually invested in this career, really focusing on how I can make a difference. And having that was just a nice acknowledgement that I'm on the right track. And and now I will still try and catch up and have a coffee with anybody who's new to the organization, the industry, and share my views and thoughts and help, because I think bidding is a great career. And I think if people tapped into like Scribble Talk and Women in Bids a lot more, we'd even, broaden the horizon for bid experts even more.
That's great, Shalini. I think it's amazing. I think, working in a full-time role, that too intense role, like what we do, it's itself is tough. Especially I've been having like 2 a.m. for a long time this whole week. And then go on to volunteer, for APMP, also for bids and proposals, and also being a socially vocal person is great. Shalini, continue to do that. Before we enter what we call the rapid random fire question round, or in honor of Howard Nutt, we call it the Nutters round. Tell us 3 things not many people know about you.
Ooh, that's a difficult one. So I would have said that I'm adopted, but we've already uncovered that. 3 things people may not know about me would be, so I am a, experienced side saddle rider. riding the traditional old-fashioned way with a top hat and a skirt, and have done many a show in that setup. There is a ice peak or ice mountain in the Antarctica named after my family called the Horn Nunatak. So that's something else no one will probably know about me. And a third thing that nobody might know about me would be, that my birth name is Pradipika, and Talini was my middle name that I was given at birth, but my adopted parents decided that Pradipika would have potentially been a bit of a mouthful for Irish people, so they changed my middle name to my first name. And that's my three things.
Okay, we will make the listeners go back and listen and tell us what's your Sri Lankan first name. To challenge them to do it. Otherwise, that's beautiful. I mean, like, that's nice. So in addition to that, talk us about your hobbies and interests as well, Talini.
Oh, interests and hobbies. So I just love spending time with my family. My niece and nephew are very important to me. So I go to Sheffield to visit my nephew at university. My niece has just started in Plymouth, so I'll be going down to visit her soon. I've got a 1-year-old cockapoo puppy, so daily walking, trying to find new routes is my daily hobby, I guess. Reading is a big one of mine. I absolutely love getting into a good fiction book or reading kind of more interesting bits and pieces. I'm currently reading 2 books. One is called Our City, which is about how Birmingham has grown through immigration policy. And I'm also reading She Thinks Like a Boss. Listening to podcasts, obviously, like Scribble Talk, but Diary of a CEO, How to Fail, those are kind of my go-to. And yeah, they're probably my main hobbies.
Got it. And also horse riding and related things. So I know you don't spend much time these days, but that's a different skill in itself. And I also understand you watch cricket.
Yes. So this is another one of the things that my parents have been very good at, always making sure that cricket was in my life growing up. And I remember at a very early age them taking me into Dublin to watch some Sri Lankan international matches on the big screen with the very small Sri Lankan community that was there. So yeah, I'm always a bit torn between supporting Sri Lanka, Ireland, or England. But yeah, Sri Lankan are my number one cricket team to follow. This summer I've been really lucky. So with the Commonwealth Games being in Birmingham, I've managed to see 2 Commonwealth Games, including Sri Lanka, and I've also seen a test match and some of the new 100 matches. I wasn't 100% sure if I'd like the 100. I'm kind of a test match traditional girl, but the 100's definitely interesting when you're there watching it fresh live.
Yes, what do you say, from a test match to 50 overs to T20 to hundreds. I mean, like it's all becoming like fast food, like fast sports. But I'm not a big fan of those things because I used to play cricket, as you can imagine, when I was very young for my county. And that sort of, players like me, we cannot sustain because we used to come down in the 5th down, when you need to stabilize the innings. In the test format, that's all you need to stand there, hold it, 300 balls, 200 balls to score 40 runs or 45 runs.
Yeah.
So I think growing up, coaching people, I mean, like it's a different ball game altogether. But that's nice that you are doing that. So Let's enter rapid random fire question round. There is no right or wrong answers. Whatever comes in your mind, answer it. That's the answer. And we can go. Are you ready?
Yes.
Perfect. So let's go. Number one. Which UK or Hollywood actress would you get to play as you in the movie of your life?
Oh, that's such an interesting question. So I guess Hollywood actress, this is maybe a bit random, would be Sarah Ramirez. I can't pronounce her name properly. I've just recently binge watched Grey's Anatomy, and she plays a doctor on there, and she's also in Sex and the City and Just Like That. So some proper chick flicks there, but I just think she's an amazing actor. I'm getting their pronouns wrong. They are an amazing actor, and I just think it'd be fun if she played me.
Yeah, why not? I'm sure I'll send this to her. When she listens to it, she's like, yes, I want. So what's something that you have that you consider as of sentimental value?
Sentimental value. So I have two things that come to the top of my head. There is a necklace that I was given from my birth mum, passed through my parents, that she gave when they were in court to adopt me. It's a beautiful opal. I have never worn it. I have kept it safe all these years. And on the complete extreme is my childhood blanket that I've had since I was a baby that I've never gotten rid of. That is very raggedy and very loved at this stage. And I'm far too old to still have it, but I do.
Right. Have you, after you've been adopted, have you been to Sri Lanka, met your family, the birth family, or I understand there is a documentary as well. Tilini, talk us about that. I know it's a random rapid fire question, but we'll park it for now.
So I guess very rapidly, I have tried several times over the years. Yes, I have been back to Sri Lanka. I absolutely love it. It is by all means like my second home. There is an extreme amount of serenity that I get when I'm there. I lived over there for 3 months when I was 18. It has been a while since I have gone back. I'm trying to do my final search for my biological parents, kind of present day. I was meant to go over in July, but due to some unrest there, travel advice was against it. So I will be hoping to go next year. I have just had a small snippet of my story on Long Lost Family, and I've also recently been on a podcast that is coming out called Raised by White People, talking about my adoption experience. So it's very much still part of my journey, but hopefully in the next year or two I might get some more answers about my biology.
Yes, totally. I think it's important, and I'm glad that you are finding all the right ways to reach out. That's the maximum you could do, Tilni, and at some point it will fall in place. But me, listeners, and everybody around us wish you all the success in finding that, and I'm sure you will do that very soon.
Yeah.
Yes, so let's get back to the random questions again. So what was the last gift you gave someone?
The last gift I gave somebody was to my partner and his best friend. They have just gone off on a 5-day road trip doing the NC 500, the North Coast drive around Scotland. So I gave them a bag full of sustenance and treats and everything they can need, from Haribo to napkins to cutlery to all the stuff that I'm adamant they did not think of. So I'd like to think that as a gift. It was more of a care package.
So what do you normally have for breakfast?
Breakfast on a lazy day is just a packet of like cereal, like a biscuit bar, like a cereal bar or whatever. On a nice day where I've got time, it would be avocado and smoked salmon, which are my absolute two favorite things.
That's great. So, do you remember the very first band you saw live?
Yes, it was Steps.
Do you remember when and where?
It was in Dublin, at a stadium called The Point, which is now a Three Arena, with one of my horse riding friends. Yeah, when they were very famous back then, but not so much anymore.
Yes, I'm sure. So, if you had to choose a completely new profession, what would you pick?
I would follow in my niece's footsteps and I would become a paramedic. I think it's just an amazing career and I would love to do it.
What will you do if you have a time machine?
Oh, can I go? Oh no, I have to go backwards, don't I? Or can I go ahead?
You can do whatever you want.
Oh, I mean, I'd probably go back to when I was a baby, but I'd want to be a fly on a wall so I can see everything about the bits that I don't know. But if not, probably back to university. I'd love to give that another go. That was some really good fun.
Totally, why not? What's the most you have ever spent on something you absolutely did not need at all?
Oh, I mean, I'm awful for buying stuff that I really don't need. Um, I buy a lot of useless stuff. Amazon is my enemy. I think I spent £100 on a gym bag that kept your trainers separate from everything else.
Right?
But I don't know why I did that, because your gym bag stinks. So you need your trainers in the, why do you need a different compartment?
Okay, in hindsight, everything is a wasted expense. I have like over 20 suits and I hardly wear like 5, especially now with COVID. I wear like 2. So I'll be like, every time when I open the wardrobe, I'm like, what have I done? That's okay. That's okay. So that's great. So if you were to be on a reality TV show, which one would you be on and why?
I would 100% love to go on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. I would be screaming nonstop at the critters, and I'm not sure I could do the challenges, but I do think it would be a real trial and personal achievement to get through it.
Totally, totally. If you could have dinner with any 3 people from history, who would you choose and what will you cook?
Oh, any 3 people from history. I would. Oh, this is a really tough question. I mean, I feel like it's controversial, but kind of would love to have dinner with Michael Jackson. Again, oh, this is a toughie, Baz. Who else would be fun? I guess maybe the Queen. Maybe it's too soon to say that, but could be an interesting one. And from history, I'd probably pick somebody personal, like my granddad or somebody. Cooking wise, I would cook my favorite food because I find it really difficult hosting and I get really stressed out about pleasing everybody. So I would just cook what I'd enjoy. So I would have smoked salmon bellinis as a little nibble, and then I would have prawn cocktail to start with steak and chips and chocolate brownie for pudding.
All right. And then next time when I meet you, I'll expect you to make this. This looks like a proper menu. Okay, that's good. Nice. So if you were a professional wrestler, what would your ring name be and why?
It would be small but mighty. So everyone calls me T. And obviously I'm quite short, so I would be called small but mighty.
Small but mighty. Nice. That's good. That's the end of the random fire questions. Hope you enjoyed it. Let's move back to people in your life. So, who are the people who have been the most influential in your life and career?
So in my life, my dad and my brother are very influential to me, kind of their work ethic, their ambition, some of their softer skills on patience and being respectful and things are definitely things that have just become natural to me from having learned them through them. Career-wise, there's been, I guess, a couple of people who have kind of helped me along the way. Career-wise, Mike Fernot, as I mentioned earlier, he was a big part of my bidding career. Also mentioned Lorraine Bard. She really gave me some guidance early on. And on a daily basis at the present, I would say Joe Berridge, who is like my bidding bestie, who when I need to vent or when I need ideas, she is my go-to. So yeah, bit of mixed bag there.
Totally. That's nice. So, who haven't you seen or talked to in a long time and you hope that they're doing okay?
My friend Army, who was also adopted from Sri Lanka, who lives in Sweden, and I haven't seen her since I was 16. But going through a lot of my adoption search recently, I've been really thoughtful about her. And yeah, I 100% wish it and hope she is well.
I'm glad you said that. I'm sure at some point she's going to listen and she'll say, hey, and hello to you. That's good. So what's the common myth about our profession that you want to debunk?
About bids, that it's an admin job. It's not an admin job. It requires brain power. It requires a lot. So much goes into it. I hate when people just think it's just admin.
I think it's interesting because we have done over 200 interviews and over 80% of the response to this question is exactly what you just said.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And if you look back, I think the many fellows and many actually chief execs or chairs of APMP chapters initially started as admin. And this was in the 1980s. And fast forward 2020, we still talk as admin. And that's the sad part. We 45 years on, we still haven't done much in improving the profession. But I think there's more and more talks coming along, and I don't know, maybe it'll take another 20 years or something. But yeah. I hope it gets nailed. So thank you for sharing that. So what advice would you give fellow bidden professionals who are looking to pursue a similar career like you?
I would say, I guess, two things are that you get out of it as much as you put into it. So it 100% can be a day job that you tick the boxes, you get stuff done, and you can go home. But if you explore more and innovate and look at ideas and come to things with a fresh perspective and kind of put in more to it, the more rewarding, the more inspiration you will get, the more you will see other things and get more insight into things in the organization. So it really can become so motivating because you can end up being such a central and key person, which gives you so much option with your career path and your goals. So I think just to put in as much as you want to get out what you want. And then I think the other thing is to just always tap into your network, however big or small. never lose sight of it. I've had that period myself, actually, not too long ago, where I kind of thought, I'm not doing much. I'm not going to bid bites. I haven't been to any events. And then the minute I went, I was like, this is what I've missed. I've missed the interaction. I've missed other people knowing what a rubbish day in bids is like. And I think just to make sure you invest in your network is hugely rewarding.
That's great advice, Tilney. So we are here at the end of the podcast. Is there any part of your life or career, or is there anything else that you would like to say before we close the podcast episode?
No, not really. I think it's been great to chat all things bids. And yeah.
Yeah. So again, if we are catching up in the next 3 years, and I'm inviting you again for the podcast, what do you think you would have achieved in these 3 years, Tilney? And it's in recording, and you will be listening to this again in 3 years. So I just want to say, yes, this is what I said 3 years ago, and I'm achieved. So think it through and tell us the 3 things that you would like to achieve in the next 3 years.
So I would love for Gulp to have grown, and I'd love to be, I mean, they're so small that they don't need a head of bids function, but I would love that we were in that place where I was head of bids. There was a team underneath me, and we were just absolutely dominating that kind of SME digital technology space. I guess the second thing is I would love to be, I guess, on my personal journey and growth, I would love to be in a position where I'm potentially kind of my day-to-day is more about supporting and training and mentoring other people. And I guess the last thing I would love is that maybe I was working less hours in a nicer, hotter location. So maybe in a position where I could have like a 3-day week, and I could be going somewhere like France or Italy for long weekends.
So again, this is recorded. So you have told everybody, and I'm sure we will be keeping an eye on you. With that note, Tilney, thank you so much for joining. It's been an absolute privilege and pleasure to have you in the podcast. Wish you, your family, your loved ones, and everybody in Gulf all the success, good health. I'll speak to you very soon. Thank you again.
Thank you.
To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Please visit batchuscribble.com/podcast to listen to this episode and check out any of our other previously recorded episodes. If you've enjoyed today's interview, don't forget to subscribe, review, and share the Scribble Talk podcast. We hope you'll check out our next episode where we interview another industry expert and special guest. Until then, it's Ashley Kays,
Bhaskar Sundram,
signing off.